Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, July 31st. We are on the Americas account, which I believe that would put us back to the new Tavern Brawl. So we're done with last week's Tavern Brawl, which was pretty bad, and now we're on to this week's Tavern Brawl, which will be pretty bad. Inherently, all the Tavern Brawls suck. Let's see what it is. I didn't even get the Tavern Brawl done, actually, for the Asian account on screen yet on Monday. So, I had to play a little bit off screen. Things are getting a little underhanded at Midva's Magical Chessboard. Bring 6 unique cards and hide them under the table. They could swing the match in your favor. So pick 6 cards. How will that line up with anything? Let's see if we could pick 6 rogue cards that would work really well. This is gonna be difficult. Alright, so if you took a backstab, you can only have one. If we take a counterfeit coin, that could be one. We could take a let's see, deal 3 damage. Pogo, this should be not bad. And playing that really wouldn't be too bad. Like, you might be able to play a mechanic. Take a Jade Golem, that wouldn't be too bad. And I definitely want... This wouldn't be too bad either. I want the one that will gain points for each. I want this legendary, yeah. So I've got to pick something that I'm willing to get rid of. And I think we can get rid of that for that. That works fine. So we've got a major buffer through combos, a defense against anything the other player plays to get them back to the hand, a growing spell that does 2 damage and summons Jade Golems, and a 1 mana Pogo Hopper, and some coins and some backstabs. So that seems pretty balanced. The only thing we really don't have is any kind of crazy spell combination, which would be hard to do with six cards, and any kind of weapon or just mass damage against the enemy. So I think this is probably a pretty smart move. Notice here it says Vanish is somehow new. How could that possibly be true? I've had Vanish for years. So I've finished the scheduling of... Wow, this has stopped animating. I think the game crashed. There we go. Apparently it wasn't the game that crashed, but the Hearthstone deck tracker was doing something weird. So I have no more scheduling, so there's really no more excuses as far as not getting back to work. And so my little unplanned vacation that should have just been a planned vacation, frankly, I should have just said, and next year I'm gonna put it in my schedule just to say, take a vacation after recording all of the Halloween stuff. There's really no reason not to do that. Well, this is gonna be boring because I've got all these chess pieces in here. So I can just win probably before I even get to play an interesting strategy. would have been a lot more interesting, frankly, if we had just been able to play without that.
Job's done.
Yeah, so I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start playing Torchwood. Not Torchwood. Torchwood is the Doctor Who spin-off TV series that I imagine is canceled because I certainly haven't seen anything about it in many years. What I meant to say was Torchlight. Torchlight 1, the spiritual successor to Diablo, and very possibly the right place to start over. And what that would do is probably run, because that's going to be a slightly longer game, that'll probably run us to the end of the year in one time slot, and then in the other time slot I'm just going to try and work. Let's see. If I put this in, it'll deal 1. If I do this, it would just give me a chess piece, so there's kind of no reason to do it that way. So yeah, the other time slot for then Christmas would be me playing games that I got for free. This is effectively flipping the Thanksgiving theme to the point of it being a
marvelous.
Yeah, this would be flipping the Thanksgiving theme. Sorry, I'm losing my track here. Where last year there was the Halloween scary games, and then there was November was Thanksgiving, playing games I got for free, mostly just spotlighting games as a way of taking a vacation or a break. And then Christmas was the cleanup, Steam wishlist cleanup last year. This year it'll be the Steam fall list cleanup. I've already scheduled that to happen in November. That I think works pretty well. Alright. So this, I believe, is as good as we're gonna get.
The Brotherhood shall prevail. Job's done.
So, yeah, I should be able to win here.
You want it?
Unless there's something that they do. Let me bring up the... Let's see. The right thing. We have a decent amount of news otherwise, and there's kind of nothing else to talk about besides that. Yeah, really just with the scheduling done, I looked into trying to program scheduling and automating scheduling things, and that still seems to be not realistic to actually even start working on until the YouTube Studio beta stops being a beta. And there's also a new feature with TubeBuddy where you can put overlay images. You can take, if the video is already live, it can read the thumbnail that is just automatically generated by YouTube, which is their algorithm saying we have our video detection element tells us that of the 3 places we sampled, these are the, no, they probably sampled quite a lot of places, but of the 3 places, 3 thumbnails we suggested, this one is the best. Because usually just because it has something that looks like a person's face on it, and that's the #1 factor, it seems. But on top of that auto-generated thumbnail, with TubeBuddy you can put overlay images and overlay text, which means that I could, you could have this system where I put something that is a transparent layer where it could have like Rydo in the corner is what I'm thinking, and then down at the bottom I'm thinking of a black kind of gradient to where I can put text and auto generate the title of the video on that. But that might actually be too small. Yeah, there is a chance it could all be really small.
Job's done.
One more damage and I'll win here. And then this will be actually a pretty nice game. Although I don't think it probably helped us too much by playing rogue cards. I barely played a couple of them. So the main problem with the overlay concept, and this is kind of a personal problem, is that I just don't have an artist still, and that's what I would need more than anything else, is just somebody that would say that would be able to do things the right way using Photoshop, and instead of me stumbling over using Photoshop. Actually, I'm using GIMP, but they're effectively the same. And having somebody with an artistic vision and an artistic eye certainly would be helpful. We took the 10 turns and we played some rogue cards, so now we need to play one more Paladin victory, and then I think we probably should also play rogue and just play ranked. So there is a small chance I would be able to make this overlay and have it actually work in some way. If I didn't bother to put any text on the thumbnail, then it would be a lot easier, but then that probably wouldn't even solve the issues.
I will fight with honor.
It would be pretty easy to put a logo somewhere. It would be pretty easy to do that, but you're looking, I would hope for a little bit more progress, but any progress would frankly be appreciated, because it's not like there's been any progress made as far as thumbnails, and the thumbnails I think inherently are part of the reason why my YouTube channel doesn't get as many views as it probably should. But I think a lot of it too is that it's just kind of impossible to be a successful YouTube streamer these days.
Hello.
Although I guess somebody who works for the King of Random, I know I watch that show more often than I probably should on YouTube. Somebody there apparently abruptly passed away, and that's a big deal. I haven't fully researched it. I don't know if it's the main male character or if it's a character that was like behind the camera or on the series previously. Frankly, I found most of the King of Random's footage to be rather disappointing, so it's not something that I watch too often. Like they are one of the most clickbaity channels where it's like, can you fill a balloon with nitrogen and will it float higher? And then the answer will always be inevitably no, not really. So yeah. Or to use a real world example, can you use expanding foam to make a floating chair? And the answer is you can make a chair if you use a lot of foam, but it won't really stay upright. If you try to sit in it, you'll just fall over. It will float. But the premise is flawed, because why would anybody do that? And the implementation of making everything a question instead of just saying that we're trying this is clickbaity. I guess my whole point on that sentence is like, I guess if enough people burn out or literally actually die out, that we will eventually, small YouTubers might have a chance.
Reporting for duty.
I just searched my name, Rydo, R-Y-D-O, and like I'm still not coming up at the top of the search. There are still other people who have started channels after I have, many years after, that seem to show up. There's still a lot of videos that are getting suggested. Really, I feel like, and this is a biased opinion of course, but I really feel like the person who has nearly 8,000 videos under that name and has a channel that they've been consistently working on, even for a weird name that's just made up, I feel like I should own that. Like, I should be the thing getting suggested if people type that in. And yet the YouTube search algorithm is not suggesting me until the 4th, 5th, 6th position, which is kind of ridiculous. So yeah, YouTube doesn't want to promote me. I'm in the algorithm's disfavor, I imagine. Is there anything else to talk about before we just start going through the news? I think I'm getting the feeling here we might be done somewhat early today at this rate, so
Converting stored energy.
let's see. So yeah, let's just cover the news, and I guess we'll try to get all of the daily quests done on at least the Americas account to before we really need to break up the episodes. I am so behind on Hearthstone episodes. I did not realize how quickly I could run out of that buffer, or maybe it's just that the buffer is getting bigger a little bit since I am trying to schedule things for well, Hearthstone. Still, I need some October videos and then November videos, and if I'm gonna build the buffer even bigger, which I would love to have 12 months of at least Hearthstone scheduled in advance always. That would be very helpful, just in case I decided to go get some kind of side project for a year where I was making considerably like fewer videos in general. I could still say, well, I'm playing Hearthstone. I guess the live streams at that point would probably end or become very late at night. But yeah, I don't know what would happen at that point, because it certainly would be asking a lot of myself to assume that I could work a side job or a full-time 40-hour job and then have YouTube be a side job and stream 9 hours effectively a week extra. So yeah, course, when the new Marvel game comes, there will be an interesting little transference there. If I do switch from playing this to the Marvel game, which is my plan, unless the Marvel game is just terrible, that's the one thing that would throw the plan out of whack. There is not a lot of reason to assume that there will be different regions in the new Marvel game. There really shouldn't be different regions in Hearthstone, except for like the Chinese region, which that's because of China. That's not really because of some desire by
Converting stored energy.
by Activision Blizzard to do these types of actions. So if there's only one region instead of 3, then just the amount of playing I'd be playing on the new Marvel card game would be 3 times as long, which means arguably I might be approaching 3 times higher in ranked play. That's a possibility. I don't know if that's a reality of what the situation will be.
Job's done.
What's interesting is it got a little bit closer, then it got a little bit closer, then it got a little bit closer. Yeah, all this has to be is the one spell. I'll lose. Alright, so let's start covering the news. Gamatsu has an article here. Exclusive, the Game Paradise Cruisin' Mix Special is coming to the Switch this fall, due out both physically and digitally via Dispatch Games. I don't know any of these games, so I imagine these are somewhat old, maybe mostly shoot 'em up games, Japanese-centric games. Is there a video down here that would show me anything? No? Let's see. Following its popularity in arcades in 1995, the Game Paradise hit the home console market in 1997, featuring classic Jalico characters. I haven't heard of Jalico in a very long time. Yeah, these seem like Japanese arcade games that there's a decent chance they'll come to the West, but there's also a decent reason why they wouldn't come to the West.
Let me think.
Let's see.
Put your faith in the light.
Whoops.
Let's see.
My magic will tear you apart.
That's the end of that. That's what I figured was going to happen. Well, do I want to fall below rank 15? Let's not. Let's just play on casual and play rogue. See, Gamatsu has an article. Daemon Ex Machina Order 0 prologue animation. This must be a new game. I haven't heard. I think I mentioned it, but man, there's so many games that have been mentioned. Apparently, it's a marvelous game. But what kind of game is it?
Escape my fury.
Seems like it's a shooter, if I was to guess, with that, and a opening animation here will probably get content ID'd more than anything else. And the opening animation it's not really going to show you anything too much. Yeah, it's like a mech fighter game. It's basically what I would suspect. I guess you could watch the animation if you're interested, but really don't need that level of information unless you've heard of the game before. I guess that is the weird position you are in, where there's this instance of a, yeah, that was a waste. There's an instance of a game that you've never heard of, needing to make people hear of those games, and yet there's also the instance of I've never heard of this game, so I have no real interest in hearing about them. So it's a almost adversarial role you take against advertisers. Advertisers are trying to shove something in your face, and as a consumer, you probably are trying to save money and spend money on things that you have actually heard of. That's why advertising is so ridiculous and oddly nefarious, that they have to show you Coca-Cola 1,000,000 times so that perhaps on the 1,000,000th and first time you will actually decide that you want to purchase Coca-Cola. Let's see. How are we gonna do this?
Think.
I think this is about all I can do.
Justice is
I can
mine.
hit that and that. Save myself. So we have a game on Steam here called Corpse Killer 25th Anniversary Edition. I've never heard of this game, Corpse Killer. It looks like it is a terrible full motion video game that would have been in the era of full motion video games. The thing I would say though is of the Sega CD games, of the full motion video games, this looks like it's an on-rails shooter game, if I was to guess. This one does not resonate as something that I've ever heard of or seen before, so it's probably pretty bad. I'm gonna be a bit of a sucker and put it on the follow list though. It's $14.99, not discounted English full audio, and I suspect that is true. This though is really gonna be more of a historical thing more than that, and it would be a case of, do I think there is actual relevance here on this game, or is this just a example of let's see.
Justice is mine.
Is it really just an example of a bad game that came out that was bad when it first came out, and a bad game still? Unlike Double Switch, which I have personal memories of and nostalgia for, and unlike Night Trap, which has more relevancy because it was the subject of like congressional hearings and nearly caused censorship to occur on around the video game world, and almost directly led to the creation of the ESRB, for better or worse. Let's see.
Ha, this guy's toast.
Justice is
If I
mine.
attack this here, then I can play this again.
This guy's toast.
Get 4 damage out of that. Let's see. Next game is tag sexual content and nudity, so let me just double check that all the screenshots are YouTube family friendly. Next game we have on Steam is called Custom Order Made 3D2. It's a night magic. Seems like what this is a slightly polished, I'm not going to call this a low effort game, but I'd call it like a medium effort game where you customize anime maids. You can customize, it seems, a lot to get it down to what you want it to look like, and then you're mostly just VR visual novel interacting with them. It seems like you also are customizing the rooms in mostly a Japanese mansion style, or at least the way an anime would depict a Japanese mansion. And maybe there's something more to it than that, where there are multiple rooms here, so maybe you've got them managing the entire house, actually doing the work of what a maid would be required to do. Notice this is discounted to $36, so yeah, you're really not getting a major discount there. And it supports VR, but apparently doesn't require VR. And it's English and English subtitles, which is weird because you would almost certainly assume that this would have Japanese audio in it. It's rated very positively, so I've already looked at this game and I've put it on the wish list. I might be wrong about that, frankly, because what you're really not seeing here is much of a game. You're just seeing seeing just the beginnings or the starts of a game. On the other hand, had you used the exact same graphics and the exact same software that exists here to tell just a standard visual novel story, it would sell pretty well. Or had you used this as a base to sell a whole series of visual novel stories, it would work pretty well. I don't really know where the fetish for maids is these days in the anime world. They certainly do still exist, but they aren't as strong as they would have been, I think, in the 80s, where there was a lot of games around that idea. Maid cafes even are probably 4 or 5 years out of fashion.
Up to no good. Justice is mine.
I think the genre pretty much played itself to death. And see, I'm watching the video now, and it does seem like you're just talking. Inherently, I don't think anybody ever really needed a maid. Owning a maid, owning a butler, and owning those types of things is an example of having a house that is way too big for you, or having way too much money and lack of personal responsibility. While it would be nice and convenient to have somebody that's doing all the cooking, cleaning, and upkeep, it's not necessary. Maybe it was necessary before things like washing machines and dishwashers existed, somewhat, but particularly in the modern time, if you're hiring a maid, it's just because you are living an extremely opulent life. I don't.
None can escape my fury.
Although, on the other hand, almost every office in the United States, every business, has some kind of cleaning service, which are effectively just maids. And anybody who has any kind of food prepared for them besides themselves is effectively has a chef that they're temporarily hiring. So perhaps we've just shifted a lot of these concepts around. If you've got a cafeteria, or if you eat out at restaurants or at or fast food joints. Of course, then there is also, in the whole maid fetish thing, the truth versus the reality, like where you have people every maid in an anime game looks like a perfect 10, when anyone who was actually a perfect 10 would not really need to work a job as a maid, because they could get probably paid a lot more being a stripper or just a fashion model or any other job. Life is a little bit easier when you're beautiful, to say the least, and the idea that you'd be resorting down to a life of servitude is not super realistic. Although that is something that would play a lot more in a Japanese mentality than it would in a Western mentality. Giving yourself up to a service kind of makes sense. So let's see if we can play this now. And get it played.
Justice is mine.
But yeah, I already put it on the follow list. Depending on how much nudity and sexual content is actually in this game, would really depend on how much of this I could really play. And it's kind of a dangerous game in that sense, that there certainly is a category of games where it might be easy enough to censor one screen or not apply a 18 plus patch to it and still cover it on YouTube. And then there's other games that absolutely, if you even began to think you could get away with showing it, you'd be joking yourself. And so that's always the danger. I pretty much say that every stream at this point too, because there's always some game like that on Steam. Next game we have on Steam is called Dreamkeeper, and it looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter game with some card mechanics, which seems to be all the new fad these days, is let's put card mechanics in everything. The graphics look somewhat alright, but not great. Just kind of a generic life bars and a lot of screen space being taken up with HUD interfaces. I kind of like the neon elephant thing, but I'm not sure. $2.69. English with full audio. I guess I'll be generous and put this on the follow list. We'll see. We'll see if people decide they actually like it.
I wonder.
But I also wouldn't be surprised if actually that doesn't need to happen, or it doesn't actually turn out to be a good game. Next we have a game that I probably would never play, Cricket 19. As I understand Cricket is way too long of a game. So unless there was a way in which this game was sped up quite a bit, I don't think I could justify ever trying to play this. I'd also have to get pretty down the rabbit hole with sports games. Like it would make a lot more sense to play a baseball game or a soccer game before playing a cricket game. Let's see. $44.99, no discount, English full audio. As a cricket game, it looks like it's fine, as far as I can tell. But I certainly don't know a lot about cricket either, so. Let's see. Hit this.
Justice
and then hit
is
this.
mine.
And then do this. Do that. Job done. And in return. I guess I'm not at a point where it would make sense to even wish list or follow list sports games, because by the time I got around to deciding there was one I wanted to really cover, it probably would have annualized over to the next year. Let's see.
Justice is mine.
There we go. Double Fine is hiring for another position, looking for somebody to help them finish the Psychonauts 2, is how it was tweeted out. I assume that was this programming job. Man, this website sucks. Yeah, they're looking for a mid to senior systems programmer in San Francisco. They're also looking for a user interface, user experience artist, and a video FX artist. So yeah, this is like the second or third job that they've listed after being acquired by
I wonder.
the Microsoft. So it's, from my perspective, more evidence that Double Fine was in a very bad position, unlikely to finish
Well played.
finish Psychonauts 2, and it's still not really in a great position, and Psychonauts 2's development is not going well. I just need to play 7 more rogue cards. So here's the tweet. Whatever plugin I found that actually worked has put Twitter back to the way it was, and I'm happy to leave it that way. So get a job. We need a mid to senior systems programmer to come and help us make Psychonauts 2. Bonus, we're still hunting for a UI artist and VFX artist.
Can escape my
So,
fury.
like, mid to senior programmer shouldn't be too hard of a position to really fill. But all of those jobs could be pretty easily filled. Yeah, I don't know why I would want to work for Double Fine. I guess if you worked at Valve and you wanted to actually make a game, jumping over to Double Fine might make a little bit of sense, but it doesn't really make any other sense, because I wouldn't be surprised if Psychonauts 2 comes out and then there's a shutdown of Double Fine after that point. I wouldn't be surprised if Psychonauts 2 came out and then there was a very little produced for the next 8 to 10 years from Double Fine, but they still somehow stay in business. You almost have to assume what will happen is the hiring of today by Microsoft to own video game studios will inevitably turn into the shutting down of studios in the next 4 to 5 years. because what Microsoft is doing is they're buying studios right now to have exclusives or games that run better at the very least on the Xbox Project Scarlet game console. Once that console is out and halfway, a couple years into its life cycle, maybe not halfway, but just even a couple of years into its life cycle, once that part has happened, there's really no benefit to continue to spend money on supporting and propping up these game development companies, particularly if they don't have anything good. Remember, Microsoft was the company that kind of just pooped out the Crackdown 3 and canceled Scalebound, and really wasn't doing much to indicate that they had any care or interest for games that were coming out or that their companies had developed. So yeah, they were canceling things, they were definitely getting rid of things. It doesn't make a lot of sense to assume that isn't exactly what would happen again.
This guy's toast.
In a couple years. At the very least, you have a obvious indication of inconsistency. Microsoft does not, to me, feel like a company that wants to own video game companies in perpetual motion. That's not in perpetuity is what I should have said. They want to own them to get like one, maybe two games out of them, and then they want to get rid of them. I'll say Mojang's kind of an exception because they only bought that in a special circumstance, and it does potentially allow them a backdoor entrance into the school system, which is what I think they really wanted. Guess I can keep playing. There's really no reason not to.
Justice is mine.
Yep. Yep. And unless Microsoft really just has changed their mind, but then you have to ask, like, Rare. Like, where's Rare? Where's the next Killer Instinct game? Where's that company? What would be almost an interesting thing for Microsoft to do is since they now own 4 or 5 different companies, what if they were to spin things around and have some employees from one company move over to another company and merge some companies together and really just mix them all together? Would that inherently improve or make one good super company? Not really, but it might get rid of some of the complacency that often seems to happen in video game companies, and that's why you see so many of them shut down and then people leave them and go start their own company. But doing that in the environment of being owned by Microsoft is probably not what people want to do. They want to run their own business their own way, even if their own way is wrong or worse. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Radical Gear. I've been watching it. It seems like it is a kind of mech fighting game with a lot of RPG elements, if I was to guess. It's suffering from a little dark screenshot syndrome. I'm not sure if there's a real game here, but it's got a user interface that looks like something. And it's $2.54, which is probably too cheap. It does have a single player element, and it's English and Korean. So what I'm thinking here is this is probably a cheap, like, Korean demo of a game more than a real game. That explained the weird looking robot and other weird looking robots. So there might be something to this, but this might really just be a demo too. So I'm gonna put this on the fall list almost because I assume it's gonna not make it.
Justice is mine.
Now, it is pretty ridiculous of me to say I'm gonna build up the fall list just so next time I need to clean up and filter through the fall list, there's a bunch of games. There's more games that I immediately reject, but that's kind of where it is. Maybe that game would get a lot more support, and it's at least on the first step of being a game that looks good, whereas if you compare it to this piece of garbage game, Rolly's Adventure, which has MS Paint thumbnails and what looks to be about 12 frames per second rendering on an asset flip Unity environment, there's nothing here whatsoever that interests me at all. This also is around $2. It's discounted to $2.24 and it's English only. This is a game that I can easily reject. There's nothing there that's going to possibly make it good. I don't want it to feel like I'm ragging on Twitch support, but let's just report it as it is. Twitch has not been having a good couple of days. 3 hours ago they said chat is returning to normal. We are very sorry for the trouble. We've noticed chat isn't working, and it should be, and the team is working on getting it fixed. Hang tight. 18 hours ago we've recovered from the previous issues, preventing users from buying and cheering bits. Thank you for all your patience. But particularly on this issue, 18 hours ago they fixed it. 23 hours ago they updated. The team is still working on getting the issue resolved. Over 24 hours ago they started looking into the issue. So they spent like an entire day trying to fix issues that it's questionable why they're even having these issues in the first place. Seriously, it feels like they have no secret backend test servers that would allow them to apply any kind of updates or changes. I mean, ideally when running a web service you would have a test sandbox to test that, and there you would simulate millions of users so that you could be as accurate as possible in your testbed servers. Yeah, that's what they're called, testbed servers. So when you put out a patch, you're at least less likely than we seem to see happens here.
Justice is mine.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that's what Twitch is doing. It seems like Twitch just puts out little changes and updates here and there, and it seems like there's probably too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many people with access to make little changes here and there, whereas you don't really see that happen on YouTube. YouTube just has better procedures, I guess. Although it does seem like with the CNN debates, they made a special effort to block / demonetize people who were commenting over the debates. If I was running a political commentary YouTube channel, I would definitely make it, if I was going to comment on that, I would not play any of the video or any of the audio. I would make it so that I just need to play cards, so I'm just going to do this. And
This guy's toast.
then do this.
Justice is
Because I'm about to
mine.
lose anyways. Yeah, I wouldn't play any of the audio and video, but even that might be a little risky because they may just be looking at the titles and claiming the titles and blocking the titles on that alone. But certainly, there is no copyright on news, but there might be copyright on the broadcasts of a news of an event. So you're in this weird point where you would be better off just commentating and mentioning what is being said than trying to rebroadcast a broadcast, which is not as visually appealing for sure, and it's not super efficient to do it that way. And there is this is the core of what fair use should be. Is the number one thing fair use should cover is commentating over important things to society, such as a political debate that may in part lead to who is decided to run for president. But YouTube doesn't really care about fair use or understand it, even, in my opinion. They seem to kind of flippantly make up their own rules and enforce them however they want to. But again, not an issue for me, since I'm not running a political YouTube channel, nor would I really want to. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. Qualcomm and Tencent team up for future mobile game devices and content. Qualcomm is how that's pronounced, not Qualcomm. Although, frankly, it should be pronounced Qualcomm, come to look at it. What does this really mean? Not a lot, other than future Snapdragon-based mobile game devices will have some lines of code or commands in their chipset, in their instruction set, not their chipset. They'll have commands in their instruction sets specifically built around cloud-based gaming, AR, and games that would have 5G connection speeds. It probably means more than anything that they are going to try and focus on having more graphical power, because let's face it, that is the divide between what a mobile game app or a mobile app needs and has right now, and what a video game needs and would have otherwise. Cell phones are effectively like a cheap computer that has just Intel integrated graphics. If you really want to play video games, you need an NVIDIA or a AMD graphics card to really push those things. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point somebody tries to sell something that looks like a SIM card that is actually a graphics card for an extra $100 or $200 that you can plug into a cell phone and give it more power so that you can game on your cell phone versus not game on the cell phone. Although that probably wouldn't be a good way to go, because it would be dangerously easy to steal at the very least. amongst other issues of just the wiring being too far away from the CPU or too easy to short circuit. Where Tencent comes in on this, I don't really know though, because Tencent is just kind of an investor company that has been given and allowed to become this big player because of Chinese government market manipulation. They really don't have anything in my mind that makes them deserve their position or in any way any indication that they've developed any good software or hardware. So this is kind of a pointless partnership from my perspective that will almost certainly never amount to anything. Meanwhile, yeah, Qualcomm is going to continuously try to improve their chips. Arguably, one could say they should be improving their chips
Access denied.
They should be improving their chips by increasing power power savings over video game support, because I just don't think they're going to get there. If anybody was going to do a video game console in the form of a cell phone, it was going to be NVIDIA with the Tegra processors, not Qualcomm. And there's still, I guess, a small chance that Microsoft might figure out how to do ARM processors, but I doubt they would actually succeed at that since they've failed at that several times before. Let's see.
Deploying countermeasures.
Reporting for duty.
There we go. Next game we have on Steam is called Counterspell. This looks like it's a combination of several different types of games. There is this top-down player versus player element that is being shown here, but then there are also sections earlier where it seems like you are very much just playing by yourself, or at least that's what it looked like. Maybe I was missing, like, this looks like you're playing by yourself, but yeah, I guess it is 4-player split screen, so it seems like it is just a player versus player game. It's discounted to $16.19. It says it has single player, but it to me seems like it is multiplayer focused. 41 achievements is a little high. Seems like it has 8 characters. On a second glance, realizing there's a player versus player, local multiplayer style focused game, I'm going to pass on it since that's not my style of game. Plus, there's not a lot to say or criticize on a game like this. I like the visual graphics, but a lot of this does seem like it's barely just a small single screen Unity concept that they're putting everything in mostly floating skyboxes, and they did work to make a platform and put some interactive elements on that platform. Let's see.
Access denied. Deploying countermeasures.
Let's see. Go ahead and kill that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Last Axis that is probably nothing if I was to guess. Let's skip this video around. Looks like it is a maybe on rails space racer shooter game. It looks very flashy in a lot of dark environments, so it's kind of hard to see the screen and keep my eyes focused on the screen, because it really does look like there's just way too much going on visually. When we look at the stills, yeah, you got large amounts of bright color and then a ton of darkness. If the entire game looked like this would be a little bit more helpful, but it isn't. Apparently it's tagged in as having nudity also. 10% off for $18.99, English only, no achievements. Let's see. Fly through twisting, turning 3D levels with 6 degrees of freedom and 0 gravity, which would drive me crazy. Trying to give this game a fair shake, but I don't think so. It's just not catching my attention at the beginning, and I think a big reason for that is you've got this thumbnail, which is again too bright, way too neon, but you don't have a main character. Like, if they had just thrown in something human, something you could relate to as the pilot of your ship, if they could throw in even little bits of text that pop up to try and say, like Star Fox 64, if you didn't have the 4 anthropomorphic animal characters in the game and it was just flying around the ship, that would be an incredibly more boring game. The final boss would make no sense at all if the Star Fox series didn't have Star Fox and friends in it, or the Andromeda system generals and such. Like, there needs to be some human element here, or something close to a human element, or a reason that you're even shooting, and I'm not seeing that in this demo. So I don't think Blast Axis needs to be on the follow list. So at this point, we are done with all of the Americas account. So I think we need to break things up, and that would only have us, we're at an hour and 10 minutes basically, so this works pretty good. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.